Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there. So please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money. So check it out and throw us some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks. Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try and make your world a little weirder. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Niall. And for those that missed the point, we're coming back on a part 2 after a bit of a little bit of a break. Kyle's back. He's better than ever. He's ready to go.
Do I have to jump back into what I just divulged to you before we started recording here?
No.
Okay.
Some things don't have to. Look. A lot of people have this issue when they start doing podcasts, especially for a length of time. They feel that they owe a lot of personal details to the world.
That's fair.
And I just want to say everything I've ever said on this show has been a lie. None of it is real. And nothing I've ever said about myself as a person is actually true.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, in that case, I'm going to follow it up and say I'm gastrointestinally normal again. Everything is fine. You know, I'm not at DEFCON whatever infinite in that regard. I've completely healed since you last heard from me. So thank you, Jules, for taking over. I do appreciate that you both, and you know, I listened. Now I want to watch that documentary. I got to find some time for that documentary. It sounded interesting. It's funny because we haven't really talked about the satanic panic, like as a topic.
It's come up tangentially about something, like in relation to a couple things, and I had a fascination with it like a year and a half ago, and I started reading into some things, and but it just never materialized into a single episode. But that may still happen. I think like the satanic panic is really interesting, and like any example of a kind of mass hysteria is interesting to me. So it may still come out.
Yeah, I would definitely be interested in talking about that sometime. And it actually it almost in a way wraps into something that's coming up with our particular topic this evening in a way. So like you mentioned, this is a part 2. I had to take a break in between. We did it. There was like a time, if you'll recall, where we would separate parts of episodes in, but we would do, for whatever reason, they're like, okay, we always
believed
do the
in the sanctity
off.
of the turn order, and it's I think the listening order is more helpful than sticking to turn order.
No, at some point we had to concede that. We had to concede that was actually probably.
I legitimately this is as best I remember it a shoot. Jules, it was one of those things. There's like once a year, Jules just hears about a thing that we've just been doing on the podcast, and is like, "Why do you do it that way?" And I go, "I don't know. We just always have." And then she's like, "That makes no fucking sense. What are you doing?" Yeah. And then we fix it, and it's better.
You know, it's it's fine. Look, it's fine. I don't know why there's just something about our mindset, our mentality when we do this show where it's less about considering the actual practical like processes of doing a podcast and more just like
it's
us.
The performance art.
Yeah, exactly. So that we can look back on that as a sort of performance art in a way. It may be an
she's
emergent...
also responsible for us having an intro that's the same every time.
That's true. She did tell us we should do that. I forgot that was her. See, like
I can trace it back through the podcast, and
That's
it's like
so funny.
probably about once every year. She's just like, "This is come on, get it
Yeah.
together."
We had no consideration for format or anything whatsoever. We were just like, fuck it. We're turning that mic on, and whatever happens,
Yeah.
happens. And maybe it'll accidentally express some of our idiosyncrasies. That's entirely
Yeah.
possible. So yeah, turn order was more important for a very long time.
We had a real gamer's mindset starting out on this podcast.
A little bit of a gamer mindset.
Not a gamer incident or a
gamer word,
heated gamer moment.
Heated gamer moment.
No.
Yeah, no heated gamer moments. I could have probably had a heated gamer moment on the podcast once or twice, but that's years ago at this point. No, it's funny because Satanic Panic. Oh my god, I shouldn't bring this up, but I'm going to anyways. One of the Mae Brussell's dead. Like she's been dead since the 80s.
Okay.
And this is part 2 of our Mae Brussell thing that I'm doing for you. Do you
I
consider
the
being
podcast
for you?
is doing it.
Right.
No, I consider it being for I consider myself an Andy Richter.
Okay.
In this role where I am here to kind of be a point between the host and the audience, and it's not really for me, it's for the audience, you know?
See, when I'm doing when I am in the role of the researcher for our podcast topics, I don't typically consider what the audience. I'm doing this for Niall. I think about like or if I know Jules or Garrett are going to be on it, I'm like, okay, this is going to be for them. So I appreciate that you're Richterifying it for me, because that probably does translate it into a more audience entertainment vehicle than I would actually do. So I appreciate that. But all that being said, one of the last things that, because we're not going to get into this now because it's too much. It's too much. But one of the last things she investigates is this guy, Michael Aquino.
I know that name. Why do I know that name?
Well, he was a military officer, right? But he was also a devout Satanist.
Sure.
And he came under some pretty serious child molestation allegations.
Jesus.
Which was something that Brussels was investigating. So, like, I may have... Okay. We're going to do a little World of Weird crossover if you want the full access to this particular discussion. I'm going to tell you the joke that I've told everybody who I've brought this up to in the last couple weeks. I just, for the first time in my life, watched the documentary called Season 1 of True Detective.
Sure.
I've never
circle at all.
I'd never seen it before. And it just kind of, God, I was like watching it, like in between doing reading on Mae Brussell and her stuff. And yeah, this came up, and I think it's its own topic if we want to tread into some particularly nasty water, but like there is also this element of truth, but like we talk about the satanic panic as this I guess mass delusion, or what's the term you used?
Mass hysteria.
Mass hysteria, and I think that is definitely true. Or like you think about the perspective of the psychologist from the documentary in the last episode, and the clear bullshit going on there. Like obviously that is true, but then you also read the yang to the yin of the mass hysteria point on Michael Aquino, Satanism, and child molestation. It's like there are some kernels. I don't know what to make of this story, but it's but it looks fucked up. There may have been a military, like a pretty high-ranking military guy who was a Satanist and a child molester. So, Anyway, whatever. It's
Yeah.
too far afield. That's in the weeds. Like, it is Mae Brussell related, but I'm not going to be getting into that story too deep here. Um, we've got other stories that we need to completely submerge in the muck of before we get there.
Oh, of course.
So we talked in part one before I had my poop incident.
Mm-hmm.
We talked we talked about Mae Brussell. We discussed how she grew up, the daughter of a prominent rabbi, the rabbi to the stars, Edgar Mignon. I don't actually know how to pronounce that name. It's an interesting name that I'd never seen before. Um, but so she's the daughter of a prominent rabbi. She had become this, very caring mother. That's like a key point to how the researcher she became, and how the murder of JFK would put her on the path of assassination and conspiracy research, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
part one. We left off talking
Yeah.
about how her radio show, she had a radio show. She started as a guest. It kind of became her own thing. This would involve, her getting, really invested in the story of JFK, and how that would also pull her into the orbit of learning about things like Project Paperclip. We left, I think the last thing we talked about was Seymour Melman in the book Inspection for Disarmament, uh, which the particular portion of that book that she was interested in was the part where they detail something like 400 assassinations conducted by the Nazis in the 1920s in Germany. So there was, a lot of Mae Brussell is her. She like gathers a bunch of information and connects the dots in like the corkboard conspiracy theorist way. Like, she is like the archetype. Like,
Mm-hmm.
she is that. Like, you listen
She
to her
could have found
talk.
Pepe Silva.
Yes. She is. You listen to her talk, and she will just list off facts and be like, and this person who is connected to that person, who's connected to this, who's connected to this program. Like, that's just how she talks half the time. In fact, in one article, they like describe her talking, and she's like slurring her words almost in like excitement. Not excitement, just like she's very like, I mean, I guess you could say
Animated
passionate.
talker.
Yeah, animated talker.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so we talked about all that and the inspection for disarmament. That book, as well as the Warren Commission, the collected Warren Commission material,
Mm-hmm.
she would read hundreds and hundreds of books over the course of her career as a researcher in this field. Uh, she was constantly reading stuff. Uh, so as a radio personality, she would have a career for about 17 years. If you want to get a sample of this, a good amount of it is actually cataloged on YouTube. Just look her up. People have saved her recordings. In fact, I think maybrussel.com, you can
Mm-hmm.
still like reach out to the person running that website and I think buy like CD sets that are just recordings of her radio show.
Hell
So
yeah.
if you
God, you
wanted
gotta keep
that,
the tape circulating. Jesus.
yeah, it's kind of fascinating. Like, there's like, you can go and just find her stuff online for free, but if you want to be like a Mae Brussell completionist, you can
Yeah.
own physical media.
Do you want to be a physical media king? Because look, streaming services, YouTube at some point is gonna fuck us all, and
That's
no one's
true.
gonna see it come. Well, everyone's gonna see it coming, but everyone's still gonna be surprised by it. And you may just need those fucking Mae Brussell CDRs, and you better have the full set. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sick. Like, I won't lie, I like, mad respect for
Mm-hmm.
archiving this show from decades and decades ago. I don't know. I guess you could say it's semi-obscure, but like, again, she's very inspirational for conspiracy theory in many of its permutations. Um so writing I have some stuff from Paul Krasner we need to get into. So, writing in Sundance magazine in 1972, journalist Paul Krasner, and he's like a comedic journalist. He wrote very um, uh, satirical stuff, comedic stuff. And here's what he said about Mae Brussell in this article in 1972. For the past 6 months, I've been obsessed with the parts that were left out of the Manson book. Now, I read this article. He had been working on some material on the Manson murders and the Tate LaBianca murders, and I believe when he says the Manson book, he is talking about Helter Skelter, which was like
Okay.
the book to read about Manson at the time. Now, of course, if you've read Chaos, the Tom O'Neill book, you also know that that book has some issues, and so being the dominant narrative surrounding Manson, problematic. But this is 1972, and Krasner and Mae Brussels are talking about how there are the official story of Manson is odd. So he goes on and he says, in the process of my investigation, I met an extraordinary human, Mae Brussell, who is a political research analyst specializing in assassinations. As a result, I'm starting with her a new periodical conspiracy newsletter to be published twice a month. Mae's basic thesis is that when President Kennedy was killed in 1963, there was a literal takeover of the government. She cross-indexed the entire 26 volumes of the Warren Commission report and reads 8 newspapers a day in the context of that masterpiece of deliberate falsehood. What I love
Damn. Okay.
about what I love about this too is we had mentioned the 8 newspapers a day thing, I think, in the first episode. So he says that here, and then in another article that I think is also written by Krasner. Krasner's like, she reads 10 newspapers a day. I have to assume that the more Mae Brussell got written about, that number went up every once in a while. It's
Yeah.
like every couple years, you're like,
She
oh no, now
actually
she's reading 12.
she actually has like 2, but everyone just has grown it in estimation.
Well, I will tell you that she definitely read a lot of newspapers. In fact, that was an important part of her methodology, which we'll get to here in a moment. But she read a lot. Like I mean, everybody who visits her,
Mhm.
she when you think of the blowhard Alex Jones, you don't picture him sitting in a library of material at a desk researching, the various, connective tissue in newspapers and books on how the frogs were actually turned gay,
No.
right? You don't picture that. He just goes on and he just says shit. Um Fucking Mae Brussell talked the talk and walked the walk, because everybody who talks about visiting her talks about basically just being just complete. I mean, a room just completely filled with text, and just newspapers and organized files, and I mean, so I don't want to downplay that she, like, her research. Like, I want to say that
Mhm.
she was an extremely dedicated researcher. Like very, let's be very clear here. Like, again, I think I said this in episode 1. I don't necessarily agree with all of her conclusions or all of her speculation that she pulls from her research, but the research is, I think, very strong, and yeah, she did a shitload of it. Um so uh so through this fortuitous meeting between Brussels and Krasner, uh, she would then be brought to work on Krasner's magazine, The Realist, that he mentions here. Now, Krasner had founded The Realist in 1958, and you can actually find the archive of that entire magazine online right now, if you would like. And that includes Mae Brussels' Conspiracy Corner. So again, big shouts out to the archival of stuff like this, because this goes back to 1958. It's all online right
Damn.
now.
That's awesome.
And I think it was published until 93. So you can find multiple decades worth of this publication online. Um and just for some context, Krasner is probably an episode in and of himself. in a way, or maybe we should talk about the groups he was associated with. So the basic idea is he was a key figure in the 60s counterculture.
Hmm.
He was not only the founder of the Youth International Party, aka the Yippies, but he was one of Ken Kesey's merry pranksters. Now, Ken Kesey was the author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah.
And Kesey and the Merry Pranksters came up on our show previously during our discussion of Sidney Gottlieb and MK Ultra, because Kesey was one of the guys who was convinced to become an LSD guinea pig, which was, he was unwitting to the involvement of the CIA in the MK Ultra program at the time. So Krasner was a part of the Kesey gang during the acid test. So like he would have these parties where people would get loaded on LSD and stuff, and
Hmm.
party on this new psychedelic. And I, given what we know about the distribution of LSD through the CIA cutouts at this time, Stanford and whatnot, I think we can safely assume that people like those in the pranksters were probably monitored by the CIA. So Krasner was involved with these guys. He was counterculture. He was there at the beginning. And the realist
Sure.
is sort of an extension of the counterculture. It was a bit of a mouthpiece of the counterculture. So it's I think that's important context for understanding. And also, like, God, Krasner, like I said, he's his own episode. Like John Lennon, when the realist was sort of faltering, stepped in and donated a bunch of money to them to keep
Oh,
going.
really?
Yeah, and he's I'm trying to remember what he said, but I think he like gave them the statement of like, if I'm killed, it wasn't if I end up dead, it's not an accident or something like that. Like he was John Lennon was specifically interested in the conspiracy stuff being written about in the realist. So John Lennon, it seems, was a fan of Mae Brussell's writing. That's what I'm hearing. Um,
Interesting. All right.
yeah. So anyways, Kesey, Merry Pranksters, Krasner as well, and yeah, that's so Krasner as a journalist was important to the counterculture culture and gave Brussell this springboard for her writing on conspiracy and assassination. So he embellishes on his first encounters with Brussell in the May 1978 issue of OUI magazine in an article he wrote titled "The Mind of Mae Brussell," which this is another thing that's archived on this website, maybrussell.com. Here's what it says. I first met Mae Brussell when she provided me with leads for a story I did on Charles Manson. Then, a few months after the break in at Democratic Party headquarters in the Watergate Hotel, Mae rang me up. She recognized names and methods of operation from all her assassination research. For example, she knew that Watergate burglar James McCord had crossed paths with Lee Harvey Oswald when both had been working for CIA intelligence, and that Frank Sturgis had been interrogated by the FBI in Miami the day after JFK was assassinated. She also had a possible tie between McCord and a secret army of police who allegedly had planned to disrupt the 1972 Republican convention with riots and possible assassination attempts on Nixon, which would then be blamed on leftist radicals and hopefully result in a further shift to the right, possibly under the figurehead leadership of Spiro Agnew.
Jesus. All right.
Yeah, so this article gives us some other interesting details, like how this is what I mentioned before. Brussels' methodology is in part modeled after what she knew about the information gathering methods of the CIA. She
Hmm.
points out how CIA intelligence gathering is roughly 80% publicly printed news stories from many different sources. So also a big part of why she's reading so much shit, is
Sure.
because that's the way the CIA does it. They just gather information from public sources. That's like apparently 80% of the job in intelligence gathering, at least at this time. Um, so yeah, 8 to 10 daily newspapers as well as magazines, journals, and so on. That's her a big part of her method. Um, Now, I mentioned how she became engrossed with the Nazi political assassinations of the 1920s. I mentioned how there's something like 400 of those. This is the story that it was uncovered by a Jewish intellectual named Emil Gumbel,
Hmm.
who had to flee Germany because they were, God, they were super upset at his anti-fascism and bringing politics into his classroom essentially. Uh,
Yeah.
so Emil Gumbel has a piece in Inspection for Disarmament where he talks about this and how. So I think he fled to France. There's specifically a school for people who fled during wartime to go teach because of similar reasons as why Gumbel was fleeing. So he goes to France and he writes a bunch of stuff and teaches. And in Inspection for Disarmament, he details these assassinations that the Nazis conducted. And Brussell saw the assassination of JFK as a pattern of the U.S. brand of Nazism that was developing. I almost said like emergent, but it's not emergent. I think in her view of it, it's like immediately in the fallout of World War II,
Hmm.
uh, we had some gestating fascism here that could better realize itself uh, after World War II. That's, I think, closer to how she viewed it. Um, so we have more here. See, this is like a big quote, but there's a lot of Mae's own words here, and I really like them. So we have more from the article that was written by Krasner. So it says
Okay.
this. Mae Brussell began to study the pattern of Nazis coming to the United States after World War II and patterns of murders identical to those in Nazi Germany. It was as if an early Lenny Bruce bit on how a showbit booking agency, MCA, chose Adolf Hitler as dictator had actually been a satirical prophecy of the way Richard Nixon would rise to power. The parallels were frightening. How much violence was there in Nazi Germany, Mae asks rhetorically, before the old Germany, the center of theater, opera, philosophy, poetry, psychology, and medicine, was destroyed? How many incidents took place that were not coincidental before it was called fascism? What were the transitions? How many people? Was it when the first tailor disappeared, or librarian, or professor? Or when the first press was closed, or the first song eliminated? Or when the first political science teacher was killed coming home on his bike? How many incidents happened? How many incidents happened there that were perfectly normal until people woke up and said, hey, we're in a police state? Hitler was gassed in World War I, and they took him to the hospital, and, according to a U.S. Navy intelligence report, they brought in a Dr. Forster, a hypnotist, and they groomed him. They told him that he would have troops that would someday invade Russia and kick the communists out. They hypnotized him so that he would always believe that he'd been a great leader, like Joan of Arc. Now take a man like Nixon, a man who is going to be president of the United States. He's known for his poker playing, his straight face. He already has a proclivity for intelligence. He wrote to Hoover asking to join the FBI. After World War II, the great poker player of the South Pacific was assigned to the Navy Bureau of Aeronautics, negotiating settlements of terminated defense contracts, where he helped escalate the importation of 642 Nazi specialists into the U.S. defense and aerospace industry, Project Paperclip. Then he gets a call from Murray Chotiner, who works with Howard Hughes in the Bank of America, inviting him to run for Congress against Jerry Voorhis. What did he have besides a poker face? In 1951, Senator Nixon introduced a bill to bring Nikolai Maloxa into the U.S. Maloxa was a former head of the Iron Guard, that's a Nazi group, by the way, and was allegedly involved in Nazi atrocities. Nixon set him up in an office of his own. So she drops so much shit. This is what it's like to listen to her radio show, by the way.
Yeah.
just so you know, like go turn
It's
one of these on.
like if a lucid version of a lot of the podcasts that you get right now.
Yes.
You know, like
Yeah.
there are so many bad versions of that that just are. They seem like they're free associating, and everything leads them to another digression and a different tangent, but like the problem is a lot of those people are just making it up as they go along and don't actually have any sort of insight. But I, that
Yeah.
that actually felt like someone had thought some things through and done some research and put stuff together.
Well,
Even if I can't verify everything in it,
I
but
went
yeah, it's
and
like yeah,
I went and I looked. Like, he did in fact write to Hoover trying to join the FBI. I believe he was rejected. He did in fact work for the Navy Bureau of Aeronautics, where he negotiated the settlements of defense contracts, which would have been during Project Paperclip time. Like, all the things that she was saying were true as far as I was able to verify them. So yes, she's like a lucid version of me, honestly. Like, um, now, so that's like, I want you to imagine an hour straight of that, of what I just said to you, because that's what
yeah.
a lot of it's like. And I don't mean that necessarily as a negative, although it is a little exhausting sometimes. It's very um it is entertaining in a way, because it is a little, it's like spooky. But
It's a lot of
she's good
thrill.
at,
Like there's a thrill in having something unraveled. You
yeah,
know?
yeah, 100%. And she's good at, like I said, just sort of memorizing all these different connections. I don't know if she had, like, she gets on the radio and she just has like a book in front of her that has all her map of connections or whatever, but maybe she did. I don't actually know if that was what she was doing, but like, she's just able to rattle them off. Um
Yeah.
so where I get lost among all the names and events. It's so easy to get lost. So anyways, that was Krasner's article on her, where he, has a bunch of May just quotes from her. Now before we move on from Krasner, I absolutely just, I have to mention this, because anybody who knows anything about this guy would be like, why the fuck didn't you talk about this? So Krasner died back in 2019. So
Okay.
no way to get an official answer or statement on any of this from him now. But in 2025, it was revealed that Krasner was fairly regularly corresponding with Jeffrey Epstein. So he
Interesting.
yeah, so he would like share emails about US politics and occasionally offer personal support over Epstein's legal troubles. Like, he
Okay.
sent an email that said something effective like, oh, take my atheist's prayer, don't let the bastards frame you. Now, I'm not, none of this is to accuse Krasner of being involved with Epstein's abuse ring, but bare minimum, it looks pretty fucking bad to be a, buddy
Yeah.
buddy with Epstein, right? So, it's weird. And yeah, this came out last year in one of the big file dumps, and I feel like I had to mention that, not because I think it discredits anything here necessarily, uh, but for some of Mae Brussell's online detractors, this is one of the jumping off points for talking about her being some sort of asset or useful idiot or limited hangout or whatever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in fact, one of the people that I saw talking about this, and like, I'm not convinced from my this first foray into the world of Mae Brussell. I'm not convinced she was a limited hangout. Uh, but I did find somebody who has like lengthy, you know, commentary on this particular angle. But also they were selling merch that I think it was like a sticker or something of Mae Brussell that had the phrase "limited hangout" on it. So like, they're they're they're
Yeah.
selling merch off the back
Sick
of this
owned.
too. Like,
Wow.
I mean, whatever. Like, again, I have to read what that person was talking about a little more in depth, but I do not. I'm inclined to say I don't agree. Um, but I'm open to being wrong.
Yeah.
Here's the important thing in doing any research regarding conspiracy, reading up on this stuff. You gotta be open to being wrong. You
Oh
just
yeah.
gotta.
I've
Um,
been wrong many a time throughout the history of this podcast. It happens.
When we're talking about conspiracies, UFOs, and stuff, it's easier to be less wrong on like paranormal stuff and like some of the cryptozoology stuff, because like sometimes that's
Mm-hmm.
just like we have the whole story right here, and we know this or that, or it's so loose to the point where you can't really uh say anything, like it's too loose, right? Like um but with conspiracies and a lot of the like stuff with UFOs, I frankly, I'll say it. Maybe this is bold, and maybe I'm really fucking cool for saying this. Is kind of what I'm getting at. I want to be wrong. I like being wrong about this stuff. You want to know why I like
Yeah.
being wrong? Because if I'm shown to be wrong about one of these conspiracy topics or whatever, that just means we're one step closer to finding something that isn't wrong. That's kind of
Yeah.
nice, right? Like for instance, I do believe that the JFK people who are really into talking about the JFK assassination conspiracies nowadays, I think that we're going to get a little bit into Mae Brussell's interpretation of JFK, but not too deep because I don't want to step on your toes. Listeners at
Mm-hmm.
home, Niall will one day do the big JFK tell all. It'll be 50 episodes long,
Mm-hmm.
and each episode will be 2 hours
Maybe for
each.
year 20.
Yeah. So that I don't want to step on your toes too much. I already kind of did when I got into Mary Pinchot Meyer, because that's one of the angles of JFK, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think JFK researchers of the assassination conspiracy stuff. I mean, I guess this is to be expected, but people generally don't agree with Mae Brussell, is my impression. Um, but also there's like a like dozens of angles here. So maybe that's not saying much, but I do think that there is information that has come out since Brussels has passed away that maybe doesn't support her theory. So, anyways, just throwing that out there. Um, I'm not a JFK expert. I couldn't hope
Mm-hmm.
to be you'd have to dedicate we'd have to stop this podcast and start a new one dedicated to JFK. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Um,
It is one of the most
it's just
widely talked about and examined conspiracy theory
yeah.
things of
But
all time.
I these
It's
stories that orbit JFK though that are nefarious, like Mary Pinchot Meyer, or one that I would really like to do down the road is RFK, the assassination of RFK,
sure,
because
sure.
that one's been covered by another wonderful podcast, but it's a really I brought her up in the first episode, Lisa Pease, I believe, who wrote a book on
Mm-hmm.
RFK. Um, I that story is so fucking weird. I would love to tell you that story, Niall. It is very strange. And Mae Brussell is of course talked about that as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, anyways, so easy to get kind of lost in the weeds here. So yeah, I mentioned the Epstein stuff. Do with that what you will, I guess. I'm not like I'm not like going to bat for Krasner, but I would say I think Mae Brussell. I would be more defensive of her than I don't know too much about Krasner other than what we've established in this episode. Um. So moving on. Brussels' foundational work for understanding what you could call deep political events in the United States since World War II. This generally hinges on the import of Nazi scientists and researchers through paperclip. And I think you could even go further to say that this is also how Nazism and fascism more broadly were also more firmly integrated into the ideology of the state. So
Sure.
uh that's like the foundation, I think, for understanding a lot of Mae Brussell. I saw some stuff that I didn't like. I forget where I saw this. I saw somebody sort of saying like, well, the Jewish upbringing that we talked about in part 1.
Mm-hmm.
could lead to this sort of like seeing Nazis around every corner um mentality for Mae Brussell, where like because the I'm gonna spoil it. Her interpretation of the JFK assassination is that basically it was the Nazis who did it. Um,
Okay.
which there's, like I said, so many JFK interpretations, um, and I can see how she landed at it. I think it's a little unfair to be like she sees Nazis around every corner. Um, I think it's more interesting to sort of frame her mentality, her story, in the way that we sort of did in episode 1, where like she saw the sort of influence her father had, and you couple that with just witnessing the war, like just what poverty looked like around the country, and then just like having all of that probably snap in her mind with the JFK assassination, where she just wants to live in a world where she can be a good mother to her kids. Like that's a little more interesting to me than like she hated her dad and also like was afraid of Nazis because she's Jewish. It just feels a little simple, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I like, and also it seems slightly reductive to how she talks about things in
yeah, I
some ways.
agree.
Like, I haven't, I of course have not read nearly as much or really any of this stuff like you have. So I take your word on it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're right. Reductive is a good word for that. There's God, and if I'm gonna get defensive of Mae Brussell here a little
Hmm.
bit more, I listened to just a snippet. So Slate put out a podcast called Slow Burn, and they sort of profile Mae Brussell in it, and it is so dismissive of her in a very similar way as this. I believe that the she hated her dad and she saw Nazis around every corner kind of came from this more dismissive mentality around Mae Brussell. And God, don't listen to the Slate podcast. That's my defense of Mae Brussell. I just think it was so, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you read about her in 2020 whatever, and how we perceive conspiracy now. They're just so I feel like they're kind of unwilling to meet her where she was at. And to be fair, there were articles written about her that kind of all at the time in the 70s and 80s that were also sort of a little flippant about the conspiracy stuff. It was already, but even more so now, but it was already,
Yeah.
yeah, a little mocking.
Conspiracy stuff has rarely gets taken seriously, and a lot of times, unfortunately, for good reason. Um, but that is, you can think of that as being useful to people who want to keep these things secret. You can think of that as a side effect of the culture surrounding. Like, there's a million reasons, depending on how paranoid you are about things. Um, and yeah, like, I'm willing to go along with the fact that she was not, just jumping at shadows.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. She was a little bit, but yeah, I would say not in the same way that as the conspiracy theorists that surround us now. Like, I'm really I'm struggling to define uh conspiracy theorist as like popular consensus of conspiracy theorists goes versus like you know people who I would consider legitimate researchers,
Conspiracy researchers versus conspiracy theorists. Like, I
conspiracy
guess, like,
alarmists and theorists. Yeah.
yeah, because
Um.
like it really is. It's so, just in the time we've been doing this podcast, it has gotten so much worse.
Yeah. In the last
And
fucking
so,
week since I
yeah.
disappeared for a week, it's gotten worse. Yeah.
So, like, yeah, I'm willing to like, because there are people that legitimately did just want to try to look into what was happening and had theories, had research, had all these things, and there wasn't a larger um, driving force, you know?
Yeah, and honestly, if we wanna bring up True Detective again here,
Hmm.
so much of that is just unanswered questions about what the fuck happened, you
Yeah.
know? And I think that a lot of this stuff, and a big reason why speculation ends up running rampant is because there are questions that you just cannot answer. Um, and that's tough to research, and it's tough to speculate without also kind of coming across like a little wild, a little crazy.
Hmm.
Anyways, so yeah, we know about Operation Paperclip, right? Well, Mae Brussell was writing about Paperclip in The Realist in 1972. She's writing about how we had something like 642 uh like weapons experts and aerospace experts, Nazis who were brought into the US and then placed in roles in universities, factories, and just various programs. Like we established this
Hmm.
on the show. We know about Paperclip. It comes up a lot. Uh then she points to the former Nazi general Reinhard Gehlen, which I think was also one of the guys that we talked about in the Sidney Gottlieb episodes, because he ends up joining the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services, which is the predecessor to the CIA.
Hmm.
And he ends up working as a wartime intelligence asset, uh, and then that becomes the CIA. So a foundational portion of the CIA is a Nazi. Um, Now so we kind of also established all this already, but the point is that fascism was not eliminated during World War II in the way that we would. It's sort of told in the popular telling of World War II. And especially in America, where you grow up being told that like kind of the United States swooped in and saved the day.
Yep.
Um, and
We fought back fascism and took down the evil Nazis.
yeah, it's one of those things where when I reflect on it, and the more I learn about about World War II and then into the Cold War, it is really crazy to me that I had this for a good chunk of my life belief that America was was the good guy who saved the world in World War II, and that fascism was like the Nazis were defeated. I
Yep.
think I for a while now I've safely been able to say that neither of those things are true. Um, it's a bit more complicated than that, but the point is fascism went underground, and the way this was possible was with support from the CIA. Uh, and the fascism of the CIA was was basically not created, but it sort of blossomed with the help of Nazi techniques. Uh, I'm not going over MK Ultra again. We already did that.
Yeah.
That was Nazi technique made manifest by the CIA post World War II. It's just
Yep.
straight up. Um, so the CIA director, who was by Mae Brussell's estimation key in this transition, was Alan Dulles, CIA director Alan Dulles. Uh, Dulles, I guess, recruited Galen and many of these other Nazis, and Dulles is also the one who was heavily involved in coordinating these coups in South America, in Iran, and assassination plots. Think of Gottlieb's assassination doohickeys and whatnot. That Dulles
Yeah.
was overseeing much of that. Um, so Brussell goes on to say that in 1951, Nixon introduced a bill in the Senate. And this bill was to bring over a guy called Nikolay Malaksa. I mentioned this before. This is the guy who was involved with the Iron Guard in
Mm-hmm.
Romania, which would then mean he was involved in Nazi atrocities. We bring him over to the U.S. Uh, and Nixon had been, like I mentioned, assigned to the U.S. Navy Bureau of Aeronautics, negotiating those settlements of these terminated defense contracts and assisting in the paperclip program to import Nazis. So she goes over all this, and she says that to reward Nixon for his service, he is then encouraged to run for Congress. And this encouragement is at the behest of Murray Chotiner, who is Nixon's friend and campaign manager. Like, I believe they were good friends too, but also was a strategist for him. Uh,
Sure.
and Chotiner, I guess, worked with with Howard Hughes, who was in the aerospace industry. He was a billionaire. And then, of course, there's also Herman Perry, the vice president of the Bank of America, of the California branch. And this is all encouragement for Nixon to run against Jerry Voorhees, who was a Democrat who, according to Mae Brussell, I always want to call her Brussels. Mae Brussell says that Voorhees was going to expose the CIA Nazi pipeline, and so to crush him politically, Nixon was the guy who was put out front by these people who have these interests, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so Nixon also received for his presidential race a ton of funding through a guy called Tom Pappas, uh, who Brussels says is a CIA conduit. Uh, and this Tom Pappas is like a marathon runner. I didn't. She just kind of brings this guy up in one of her articles. I don't really know much about Tom Pappas, but
Okay.
apparently this person uh, was a CIA conduit, according to her. Um, and they also were like, "You're going to nominate Spiro Agnew." So Nixon receives money, and in exchange, they get Spiro Agnew. And this, you know, May describes him as a quote reactionary supportive of a CIA-backed fascist coup in Greece. That is going to be the vice president. So
Sure.
that's the exchange happening there.
Jesus Christ. All right.
And so what? Let's not sugarcoat this. Mae Brussell is saying that Nixon has a bunch of ties to Nazis. Um, and she also makes similar claims about Senator Joseph McCarthy, who what people will know about McCarthy
Big
is
shocker.
right. You will right wing guy who they literally, McCarthyism, the Red Scare. Like this is the guy. He's come up a million times on this show as well. Um, so McCarthy, at least according to Brussels, was getting also financial backing from Nazi sympathizers, a Frank Sensenbrenner and Walter Harnischfeger. Um,
Fantastic names.
and these guys would lobby for the release of Nazi prisoners of war who were imprisoned for murdering U.S. soldiers during World War II. So these are people who were financing McCarthy, financing anti-communism in the United States. Uh, and of course, the CIA. I mean, we want to talk about the CIA fomenting the Red Scare. That's a podcast episode too. But suffice to say, the United States intelligence world was also really playing into the Red Scare stuff. They would take, there's some obvious stuff. Think COINTELPRO, which was an FBI thing,
Mm-hmm.
infiltrating leftist spaces, telling MLK to kill himself. The God. Maybe that's one I should be revisiting because it's been like 6 years since I covered that.
Yeah, I wonder why we can both remember when we did that episode.
That's true. That's true. But then of course, just like providing intelligence, providing information on leftist organizations and activists to the House Committee on Un-American Activities. That's also Nixon served on that. God. So there's
Nixon's a fucking piece of work.
Real piece of shit.
No one hates Nixon enough.
It's true. I mean, and this is like, again, you also have to think that Mae Brussell's dad was a good friend of Nixon's. Like, this is, and think about how he talked about her in, like, in that first episode, just like, yeah, she has some interesting ideas, like in the lead up to Watergate and stuff. It's just, it's so funny. So, God, there's so much, like, this is what her foundation is that, like, there are Nazi connections to important political people and political events. A lot of financial backing comes from people who have Nazi connections or are just Nazis, apparently. She also has this whole thing where it's not just Nazis, it's a group called the White Russians. So basically, for people who don't know, the White Russians were also known as white emigres. These were Russians who fled the Bolshevik Russian Revolution. And the White Russian term, that gets used to describe people who fled for a number of different reasons. But, like, let's be clear here. The White Russians were anti-communist. So, fleeing the revolution, they were fascists. There are, like, a bunch of different White Russian fascist organizations that are anti-communist that were born out of that revolution. And she thinks part of her theory relies on not just German Nazi scientists being brought to the U.S. to work on these things, but White Russians also were involved and also had oil interests and wanted to see returns on their holdings. And they were also brought to the United States after World War II. This is an angle I have to explore a little bit more because I know a whole lot less about the White Russians than I do the Nazis and Paperclip, you know?
A much less well-known group in terms of our textbooks growing up.
Yeah.
You hear a lot about the Nazis, not much about the White Russians.
But, like, this is just a pattern in in a lot of different operations where we just not just work with far right fascist groups. Oftentimes we'll also just arm them. That's another pattern that she
big
picks
fun
up on.
times. Yep.
So the White Russians, according to Mae Brussell, were also involved in these espionage activities and were oftentimes working alongside the imported Nazis, or were just under the direction of Galen, the guy who was brought into the OSS. So the CIA also works with Russian fascists, is what she's saying. And the reason the White Russians are important is that this is... I'm going to try so fucking hard to not get lost in weeds here, but Marina Oswald, who was Lee Harvey Oswald's wife, she was a member of the White Russian community. And her father had been an officer, a Tsarist officer. And, I mean, God, Marina Oswald, let's put it this way. First of all, Marina Oswald's still alive. She's still around. And I get the impression that if there's anybody who could provide some mind-blowing information about the JFK assassination, it's probably Marina Oswald.
I'm gonna just add her to our eventual like dream list of guest hosts.
She's got to be
show,
old as hell now. I don't
hear,
she's like
hear
in her
for
late
her
80s,
tell
maybe.
all.
I would love that. I would genuinely love to hear from Marina Oswald. I don't think
maybe we can get her deathbed podcast.
Well, I think she went on Joe Rogan.
Oh Jesus,
or something like that. We have to do a Marina Oswald episode sometime. But yeah, I would love to get... Do you remember how... I think it was Cord Meyer, Mary Pinchot Meyer, who gave that deathbed confession where they're like, who killed Mary Meyer? Who killed your wife? And he says something to the effect of those same motherfuckers who killed JFK.
Mm-hmm.
I would... Oh, man. She could drop one hot goss right before just kicking the bucket. That would be That would be sick. I don't. This isn't me, wishing ill on her. I'm just saying, like, that
No,
would be a badass way to go out. Just
we will hold the drop of the episode until after your death if that's your wishes. I'll just put that on the record right now.
yes, please. I know you're listening, Marina. No, like that would be such a crazy way to go out. Just like send the conspiracy world into absolute turmoil with one last truth bomb. That would be sick.
We're not gonna cover JFK until we can definitively solve JFK. By getting her on the podcast,
oh my
she's
God.
gonna tell all.
I would fucking love that. So I'm not gonna get, so I don't want to get too deep into her particular theory of JFK, but like I mentioned before, she basically is saying that the Nazis are behind his assassination. If we were to keep kind of going down and pulling at the threads here, it would just be another couple dozen names and connections and things to Nazis and to the CIA, back up to Marina Oswald and Lee Harvey Oswald and Jack Ruby and all that. All those things are really interesting, and I think we should talk about them at some point. But we're talking about Mae Brussell as a person. I just wanted to kind of illustrate some of her beliefs here, to give you an idea. So here's a couple other interesting things that she believed and talked about. So one thing that's very infamous with her is that on May 29th, 1968, Mae Brussell went and basically flagged down Rose Kennedy at an airport. And she went up to Rose Kennedy and gave her a note. And the note said that Robert Kennedy is going to be assassinated soon. So this makes sense because she sees that there is this pattern of like just killing political opposition that the Nazis have. And by her own framework here, the Nazis are now in the United States, fully incorporated, conducting the same operations. They're just doing it again.
Yep.
So,
but through the CIA.
So,
did she have any thoughts on NASA?
That's interesting. Werner von Braun does come up in a couple of the articles that I found. I haven't read anything about NASA specifically yet.
Okay.
But I'm sure Werner von Braun is another. It's just another Nazi, it's another Nazi in a long line of Nazis that were pulled into the U.S. like scientific and military and intelligence infrastructure.
But he's as far as I know, he's the only Nazi that did infotainment for Disney.
Yeah, it is insane that we're like we do need one sort of like PR Nazi.
Yeah,
the
accent's
always
cute. It's great. Yeah,
it's always very strange to me that
watching
was
that fucking Disney produced Journey to the Moon thing hosted by Werner von Braun is like the day I found that was so I will always remember it. It like there are things that through history that when you go back and look at them, it's like I know people didn't have the context for that at that point, like why that is so fucking like strange. But man, that is so fucking weird.
It is weird to the point where I'm like, was there some sort of like mass hypnosis on the American public to make them like you would have to walk up to somebody and like snap fingers in their face and be like, that's a Nazi, that's a Nazi, that's a Nazi. By the way, that's that guy's
like, we were just so happy.
Disney guy, the guy at Disney and NASA, that's a fucking Nazi. Yeah.
It feels like after World War II, everyone just collectively decided that like fascism was over. And like we can be at home now, and just was like, oh, we've got people coming in from Germany and people coming in from. It's like, hey neighbor,
mean that's Niall. That is Mae Brussell's thesis statement, right? Like, there was an opening for fascism to flourish here, and again, I would say that fascism didn't begin with the roping in of Nazis in the United States, but it did help it flourish. So anyway, what the fuck? Here's what I was saying. May 29th, she hands this note to Rose Kennedy, and then a week later, Robert Kennedy is assassinated. So That's fucking
How,
crazy.
how do you not get picked up for questioning if you do that?
That's a good question, and also I will tell you, Niall, this is one of those points that the naysayers point to as like Mae Brussell was an asset or a limited hangout of some kind.
Uh-huh.
Because how the fuck did she do that? And I would almost say, well, I get that, but also like look at her framework of that we just described. I don't
And
think it's
also,
that crazy.
Fascists aren't that clever.
I guess that's
You know?
true. I guess that's true.
Like,
Yeah.
they're insidious, but they're not clever.
Yeah. Yeah, I get. Yeah, I mean, look, either she was good at picking up on this pattern of political violence, based on this research she's doing, or she just had a CIA handler whispering in her ear, "You're going to tell Mrs. Kennedy that that Robert's about to get shot by a little guy with the same two first." He has the same name. Both of his names are Sirhan is what I'm getting at. I'm driving at.
Yeah. You got there.
So yeah, that's crazy. In August 1977, in one of her broadcasts, she also talks about Jim Jones and the People's Temple, who moved to Guyana. And she speculates on air that this could be a training camp for assassination teams. And some of the possible connections to the this is another one where like I don't want to reach beyond my understanding here, but I have heard whisperings in dark corridors about the People's Temple and Jim Jones having connections to intelligence. I cannot personally say that I vouch for that because it's in another realm that I have not explored yet that will probably give me another new kind of psychosis just to read some of that. But
we've always wondered, should we cover these types of things? I guess we should have to find out where the CIA fucking slots in, and it's fair game for us.
Yes. But there's this whole story about
did the CIA do Heaven's Gate too? Like,
I think we can say that L. Ron Hubbard sort of accidentally did Heaven's Gate. But again, this is we're setting up for a totally different podcast now. So she says, maybe they're an assassination training camp. This was over a year before, the church members are just massacred. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then March 29th, 1981, she's on broadcast and she is talking about the power struggle within the Reagan administration. And she starts saying, like, who's going to kill off who first? The next morning, Reagan is shot in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, and he lived,
and
right?
He lived. Yes. Yeah. Well, it would have been a different...
That's the...
No,
I knew he died. I knew he didn't die, but, like, I forgot he had an assassination attempt. Yeah. That was that realization.
Yeah, these are the things where it's just either she had a pretty good method for picking up on patterns and a pretty solid framework for how some of the political violence works in this country, or she is just totally compromised. Flip a fucking coin, I guess. Now, another important angle to the Nazification of America by Mae Brussell's estimation is the existence of programmed assassins.
Sure.
So, believe it or not, we're already pretty well prepped for this part of her analysis from our episodes about Martin Cannon. Decades before Cannon's assessment of the UFO phenomenon as a psychological operation that could be manipulated by MKUltra science stuff, Brussell was pointing out that assassinations could be linked back to the work of neuropsychologist Dr. Jose Delgado and electronic mind control. So we talked a bit about this guy and his invention, the stimoceiver. He is the one who is able to control the mind of a charging bull with this device. So that's Delgado.
I remember that guy.
Cannon speculated that perhaps such a device could be a part of a UFO abduction, like a false flag of UFO abductions. We talked about this in 3 parts on that stuff. Brussels' speculation is a little bit darker. This is also very much stepping into the territory of Dave McGowan, who I must acknowledge here, whose name has come up on the show a few times before, but Brussels sort of has her own flavor a little bit. It overlaps. She suggests that the CIA's research into mind control and use of scientists like Delgado and the whole Nazi thing, this actually could get them programmed assassins. Something that we do know was at least on the agenda of MK Ultra.
Yep.
Brussels argues that even the Zodiac was a programmed killer, and that these programmed killers were created to sow fear and unrest, convincing the American public to call for a stronger police force. She also believed that these killers could be aimed at the political left to just, assassinate people, assassinate activists, manipulate the public's perception of leftist activism, and even destroy leftist organizing from the inside. And so, Niall, that's why in part 3, we're going to talk about Patty Hearst, the Symbionese Liberation Army, and programmed killers.
Fantastic. There are times I like to think that I have done enough of these episodes with you that I can kind of understand where you are in an episode, despite the fact that I have never seen your notes nor done the research that you're doing. And I was about 15 minutes ago, I was like, I don't think Kyle's coming to an end here. Okay, we're doing part 3. Fantastic.
Yeah, I like the sort of stuff that we covered. I mean, I was sitting here with 200 tabs open on my computer, 2 PDFs open. I'm bouncing from one thing to another. In doing like the coverage of the stuff that I've covered so far, I'm severely glossing over it also.
Sure.
Like I have to acknowledge right now that we didn't get in depth in her stories here, but like she has different aspects to her conspiracies, right? Like there is the JFK stuff, which is the obvious stuff, but also something that I don't want to go too deep into yet because, we'll unpack different characters. We'll do our Marina Oswald episode or whatever. Like we can unpack different characters as we go. I'm sort of retroactively looking at Mary Pinchot Meyer as maybe the first in that line, even though that was a couple years ago. But then, like, to me, this angle of the programmed killer is its own thing. Something I've wanted to talk about for a little while because it ties into so many things we've already established on the show, but also it's sort of hard to talk about without just going into a deep, dark place that starts to look a bit like true crime. You know what I mean? So having the perspective of Mae Brussell to sort of ground the stories in a way, I guess not ground them, but like to bookend these things. That's what I decided I wanted to do because there's a lot more that she has talked about, lots more. And I'm not even going to be getting into the Presidio thing because it's like that's I don't want to talk about child molestation.
Yeah,
I'm just not that interested.
It's not really the area that I want to spend a lot of time on.
But she did investigate that stuff, and that was what she was investigating when she was struck with cancer and died pretty young, like in her 60s, I want to say. And of course, that leads to certain people online saying that they hit her with the CIA cancer gun.
Yep. I was waiting for that one.
So, that's part 2 of Mae Brussell. We're gonna conclude with another facet of her conspiracy research in part 3. And I swear to God, that'll be the last one. That is the Mae Brussell, series. We will get into these topics, like other stuff here. Like I really, there's so much wild shit that she has covered that it would be a disservice to not dig into some of her stories here in the future too. But,
yeah, and it's like we keep finding these little pockets where like you in finding something that you like, then find 16 tendrils coming off of that, and it's in a slightly different area than we've done before, and then I find my pockets, and I find and I think it's cool that we've done as many episodes of this show, and there's still stuff that's like, oh, we gotta do that like, you know,
yeah,
and it happens regularly. Like it's like
constantly.
almost every episode there's at least like 2 of them.
Yeah.
So if you're ever worried about It Gets Weird running out of content, impossible. Because the world exists and
Yeah.
you live in it, and tell us that there's gonna be an end of episodes of this fucking show. It's
No,
impossible.
we're gonna hit yeah, dude numbers someday. That's where this is going.
Yeah.
Or you know what? We're gonna hit Mae Brussell numbers. I think
Yeah.
she did a lot of
So
shit.
we gotta figure out how many episodes she did. So we gotta see. Maybe we'll do a ceremonial episode. That and how many episodes Art Bell did. We should.
Oh, man.
We should,
Art. Oh man, my 2 of my heroes in one little sentence there. Mae Brussell and Art Bell. No, that's. I mean, Art Bell was on the air for, let's think, late 80s into the 20. Like he came back, he left 2010s. Yeah, he was doing a shitload of stuff, and Mae Brussell, you know, she had 17 years on air. I will tell you, she spent a little time off the air due to death threats.
Okay.
But you know, she still, and I think there's something like hundreds of episodes cataloged on YouTube. So, anyways, yeah. We're gonna try and, you know, keep going to stay in the practice of long running conspiracy audio content media, whatever. I don't want to use the word content. I hate that word.
Yeah, it's fucking stupid.
I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So now
we make art, podcast art. This is art.
Yeah.
And fuck you.
I mean, I get. Yeah. Okay. All right. You know, look. I think the fact that you and I are earnestly. I guess I'm about to suck my own dick here. We are earnestly, just like, yes, we're like going out and researching and writing about these topics to then present to the other. But like, we're just chatting. We just talked up front about how we didn't think about format anything with this show. We just did it the way that we kind of fell into. So in a way, that's sort of art.
Yeah, it's improvisational art, you know?
Yeah. Sort of like second.
It's like a mini Herald every time.
Yeah, or Second City.
Yeah.
It's a lot like that.
A lot like that.
Okay, Niall. So I have a big question for you.
Great. I'll put my Second City training to use.
Nice. What are some like improv style like warm-ups we can do?
I mean, there's Zip Zap Zop.
Okay.
I don't know how to play that one, but it's the one that gets referenced all the time. There's Hey Fred Schneider.
Okay.
These are all ones that I've seen improv people do. And also, if you go to any episode of Threedom, the games they play at the end are basically like short improv warm-up prompts. So like there's a lot of stuff out there.
I don't know why I asked you, you know, about the warm-ups that Second City does, because this is just what we do before every episode. Like I already knew.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, I have a big question for you. If you could deliver a message on a note to JFK the day before his fateful head situation, what would that note say?
Now this is a fun one because we're dealing with causality here, and
you know, murder of a president.
Because the most fun topic, because like if you warn him off too easily too quickly, then they will just come up with another plan.
Sure.
You kind of have to
let's assume that this does not change the timeline. JFK's head still just fucking explodes.
Okay.
No matter what we do. This is like, it's less about trying to put him on a new path.
we just
and
want
more
like, so I just want to like haunt him in his in
Yeah,
the afterlife.
this is the message that he's sort of going out, like, maybe that's in the back of his mind before his mind is painted on the back of the. Damn, my bad. I shouldn't have said that. You get what I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
this is just more about, we get to tell JFK one last
Look,
thing.
I that's really interesting. I don't usually think about final words to previously murdered individuals, but like there are things, because like the things that immediately came to mind were things that would try to interfere in some form or fashion. So if we're not doing that, then I mean, do I just like,
It's up to you. I'll tell you what I would do if you want.
yeah, go ahead.
We know that JFK was a bit of a horn dog, right? Like, he was
Yeah.
sexually fucking all the time. Like, that was like one of his big pastimes, was fucking and having sex and like doing it 69 style and like, just like doing it real good. And I feel like that maybe in his private times he would have benefited from knowledge, from certain knowledge. He would have benefited immensely. So I think I'm going to drop him some secret knowledge. I'm going to just slip him an advertisement for the liquid lap dance pants.
I'm glad this is coming back up.
Now, I don't know
Man,
how
that's
long it's been since we've talked about the liquid lap dance
Holy
pants,
shit.
but it's been a number of years.
For when you want to come in the club.
Yeah, basically, okay.
One of those slogans
Dear
that
listener.
sticks with you.
Dear listener, if you don't know about liquid lap dance, and I don't know how that's
I'm
possible.
surprised did you listen to an old episode and get reminded of it or
No,
something?
it's one of those things that never left my mind. It's so funny.
Wow.
Liquid lap dance were these special pants that were made. What were they made of?
I think it was like a very like they were like a shimmery kind of it was like a very thin tracksuit pant, you know?
Yeah.
It was that kind of like athletic wear material, but they were very thin pants that supposedly did not impede the sensation of getting grinded on.
Yeah.
In the same way as your denim or your thicker fabrics. So, they're not an inhibition to fully enjoying lap dance to completion, some might say.
Yeah, the idea was that if you wanted to go to the strip joint and okay, this is my understanding of what a strip club is entirely pop cultural. Like I picture the Bada Bing from The Sopranos.
Sure.
Do people get? I don't have any idea how revealing this. I'm scared to say this. Do people get with strippers who then you go and get a lap dance at a strip club, right? That is my question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like you get them either like sometimes it'll be at like tables in the main room, or they have private booths where you go to the VIP
okay, so
area
you don't
and you get
you don't do it in front of people.
Some people would, but it's not like,
well,
it's usually not directly next to the main stage.
Did they have strip clubs back when JFK was his head was still intact?
Oh yeah.
Did they?
For sure. Almost certainly.
That's crazy. That's wild. I guess I don't know how long, but I'm realizing I gotta just go.
Gentlemen's clubs, there was
guess that's
stripping
fair.
in like the fucking Great Gatsby stuff,
Really?
not in the book, but like there burlesque clubs
Daisy was...
and strip shows and stuff have been around for fucking ever.
Because I was gonna say I don't think Daisy in the Great Gatsby was a stripper, especially not after that incident.
No. It's I look, I could have said the 1920s.
Yeah.
And that would have been more illustrative and less confusing.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you're thinking we're thinking in fictional worlds, I just reach for the thing in that time.
Okay.
Period.
So I guess conceivably JFK could have been in the club and he could have benefited from... So maybe what I'm hoping is that he gets that message and he has one last lap dance. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And he can finally nut in the club like he's always wanted to.
Yeah, like
She's like, do you need...
Is it...
No, go ahead.
Is it bad to say I'm almost certain that JFK nutted in a strip club at some point in his life?
No, I don't think that's bad.
Is that allowed?
I'll allow it,
you know?
Niall. I will personally allow it. Yeah, no, I mean, she was, the stripper's probably like, you want to... I'm trying to figure out how to make JFK say, like, I'm gonna go right into these pants. And you can just sort of just blast.
You gotta bust out your clone high JFK impression.
yeah. You could just I'm my hope is that the only change I make to the timeline is that before he gets shot, JFK can go just fucking blast some ropes in the club without it being a problem, right into his pants. So yeah, you would basically wear these pants and you could just like come in them. Which is fucking...
Yeah, which I guess is something you want to do.
I was going to say, it's fucking insane, is what it is. And I don't think this product ever took off, but maybe it should have, for JFK's sake.
No. I mean, if JFK was an actor... Hey, if JFK could wear the liquid lap dance pants while he got assassinated...
That would be nice. That would be good advertising.
That would raise the profile. Yeah. So, I think...
what were you going to say?
I was going to go in a different direction here. And the idea of an advertisement did tickle me. But I think I'm going to go a slightly different direction.
Okay.
And I think I just want to like confuse, like I'm going for kind of confusion and kind of a memorable moment in the end of his life where he just opens up this letter from me and it's just like the printed out full lyrics to American Idiot by Green Day. And like, I think like it kind of taking that song out of its political moment of like 2004, and sending it back to JFK so that he can read the deep poetry of Billie Joe Armstrong would really do a lot to kind of make him reconsider things and maybe have kind of a deathbed. I mean, he was already... JFK wasn't like horrible.
He didn't really get to have a deathbed either. Like deathbed sort of implies going out peacefully into that good night.
Yeah, he could maybe, and maybe. Look, I don't know if you would allow me to send back a fucking chip tune of American Idiot for him, but if so, maybe he could have that playing in the presidential motorcade. That
would have been fucking sick. They're fucking prepping the shot, and you're hearing like the subliminal mindfuck America. Like he's just like, oh shit. But mindfuck's a little loaded in that scenario.
Yeah,
I guess. Well, I like the idea. Getting JFK on the Green Day train would be really fucking cool. To be totally fair.
I think he would really, really like that kind of thing. I think he would be into, vaguely political, pop punk from the early 2000s.
I mean, American Idiot. It's more pertinent now than it ever was before, and way back in the day, it was more pertinent too. Like decades before it came out. Yeah. It's kind of eternal in that way.
It's really one of the songs of all time, And
I'd like to think that
the next gold disc we send out into space is going to be that on side A and B.
That would be awesome. Can you imagine some aliens fucking listening to When September Ends?
Yeah.
That would be so sick.
Yeah, wake me. Oh man.
They're like, something really bad must have preceded this.
The Venusians would love fucking St. Jimmy. Oh my god, they'd love St. Jimmy.
Oh fuck! This is
this just showing my ass that I know, like, because there was a time period before I got into other things where I really only liked Green Day, and so I was on the Green Day fan websites and shit, and was like downloading the B-sides of like European singles on LimeWire and shit. So they're I can talk to you about Favorite Son.
Well,
and the I Fought the Law cover and shit. We can do that.
Geez. I think you painted a beautiful vision that I personally really love. But I think also like we can highlight the key difference between you and me. You want to send the golden disc with American Idiot on it, and I want to send the aliens 138 smoothed out sloppy hours or whatever that's called.
Look, I will say my first thought was to send him the Zapruder film, but like I didn't know how to make that happen in that time period. Like, do we send an iPod video back?
I mean, we also kind of, I think, have to assume that we're really gonna break some laws of reality doing this. Like even just the assumption that this doesn't create a new timeline is sort of fucked. So, but I mean, that's like that's the scariest idea I think maybe you've had in a long time, Niall, of just showing the president footage of his assassination the day before it happens. That like I'm glad you went the Green Day angle, because that's beautiful. That the Zapruder film is scary as fuck. That's like that's the premise for the most fucked up, French horror movie you've ever seen.
That's a short story that I'm working on. Is JFK receiving unmarked the Zapruder film the day before his death.
It's awesome. Don't get me wrong. It's really, really awesome. It also kind of gives me this weird sense of existential dread. So
yeah, that's fair.
Beautiful. Wow, that big question couldn't have gone better for me. Frankly, I loved every minute of it. You want to take care of some business?
Yeah, if you want to find more of this show, and honestly, I couldn't believe you if you said no. We're on all your favorite podcatchers. We're on, I don't know, what still exists? Spotify.
I think they're all gone.
Apple Podcasts. Yeah, I think it's just Spotify and YouTube now, but we're places.
Yeah, look us up. We're there. We're on Blue Sky at It Gets Weird. We're on Twitch, twitch.tv/It Gets Weird. Give us a fucking follow. Also, email us, itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. Send something into us. We might read it on the show. Just tell us how we should address you. Make sure that email's good, because we're ravenous for it right now. Please support us. We just finished the X-Files on our $2 tier show, It Gets Weird TV. We have a $1 tier, a $2 tier, and a $5 tier. We watch It Gets Weird TV stuff. People get to vote on that. If you want to vote on it, get in there right fucking now. Get in at least the $2 tier. $5 tier if you're a real It Gets Weird fan, though. Sorry, this is not normally something that I would tell to the $2 tier people, but the $5 tier people are actually the real fans. I'm sorry. I have to be honest here. So I don't mean to pit two bad bitches against each other, but like, let's be honest. At the $2 tier, we have It Gets Weird TV. Niall and I talk about weird television. You get to vote on what we're watching as long as you're donating to our Patreon at the $2 tier and up. We also have the $5 tier. That's the World of Weird tier. It comes out in the off weeks of It Gets Weird TV, where Niall and I talk about whatever the hell we want, all kinds of stuff. Super fun show. We have a great time just chatting, because that's just what we do. Whether you donate to the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to the main show 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday, and you get access to the Discord, where we have a loyal group of listeners who are talking about all kinds of stuff: Bigfoot, UFOs, anything that we have kind of just had under the banner of It Gets Weird. That's getting discussed on the Discord. So please check out patreon.com/itgetsweird. We also have the tip tier. That's the $1 tier. You're just saying, hey, here's $1. Thanks for doing what you do. But if money's tight, and we get it, for a lot of people it is, least you could do is tell people about It Gets Weird. Tell somebody who you think would enjoy the show about our show. We spread via word of mouth because we're not advertising. Honestly, tell somebody who you think would fucking hate the show about It Gets Weird. I'd be curious to get their review as well. In fact, I've gone on and seen, I think, people who are in that camp review our show. So, tell some people.
I try to avoid that.
I don't give a shit. I think I stopped giving a shit. We mentioned how you were like, oh, you know why it's been 6 years since you covered COINTELPRO. Well, COINTELPRO was, we did that episode somewhat in a reaction of the situation with the Black Lives Matter protests. We also took a week off when that happened and basically said, fuck the police, Black Lives Matter, when that was all going down. And that was not a mass exodus, but we lost some people who left some very unfriendly comments and reviews on our show when that happened. So for that, I say good riddance. I don't give a shit. I take it all. I take it all. And so if you know somebody who's like racist and sucks, and you're like, here's this really great show that you should listen to, I'll take it too, because they'll get pissed off. And that's
they'll
fun.
think they're going to be safe listening to conspiracy podcasts. They'll
That's
think
right.
that we share their views. But no,
that's
fuck
right.
you.
So yeah, but you should probably just tell your friends, let's be honest. So please tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman, fuck you, and listen to It Gets Weird podcast.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening. Thank you for continuing to support the show. This has been It Gets Weird, and I've been Niall.
And I'm Kyle, signing out.
Peace.